Okay, it's Thursday, August 13th, 2020. We'll call this meeting of the Natrona County Parks Advisory Board to order and begin with a roll call. Let's start over here.
Jim Miller.
Roy Buck.
Dave North.
Stuart Hill.
Okay, and next we will stand, face the flag, and have a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item is everybody had an opportunity, the board members had an opportunity to look at the July 9th and the June 15th meeting minutes. They're both in our packet. And the June 15th meeting would be the special meeting that we had on the Monday morning.
It says 5:30 p.m.
I'm sorry. June 15th. I think we have the incorrect date on, that might be the June 11th meeting?
That meeting was canceled. That's what we thought last meeting, and this is actually what's on the YouTube.
Oh, correct, so this is the notes from the meeting that we had, and then had the YouTube, basically we approved the minutes from the YouTube video.
Right.
Okay, thank you. So let's start with the June 15th meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look those over?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I second that.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion on these minutes? So basically, we're approving the written version of the minutes that we had previously approved from the YouTube video. No discussion, we'll go ahead to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move to the July 9th meeting minutes. So that'll be our last month's scheduled meeting.
I have a correction on, let's just say the third page. Under G, where it says Jim Hill asked if it would be included in the tear down.
Ooh, Jim Hill.
I think that's Jim Miller.
Okay.
You see that?
We could correct that.
Any other additions or corrections?
Up there at the top on the, go back one to the 15th. Up there at the top, it says W.L. Lenhart, and it should be WLC. Right below the Pledge of Allegiance.
We already approved that one.
Oh,
Yep,
Okay.
so it's,
all right. Okay, just for correction
See what you're talking
for the future.
so we're still looking at the July 9th meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections?
Just so I heard that right, that was under G, Jim?
I believe.
Under G on the
G,
third
yep.
page
Third
of the
page,
packet.
Mike.
Okay. I see where it is, okay.
All right.
So I'd make a motion to accept the July 9th
Okay,
minutes.
I'll second that.
okay, motion's been made and seconded. Do we have any discussion on the minutes for July 9th? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. We've got reports from our interim parks director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with the mountain well water system. Obviously, that system's still turned off. We're working with the consultant 609, which is Barry Vinn, who designed the new water well we were going to drill. And he's contacted the DEQ and the EPA to see if we can't modify the existing well and correct our deficiencies that were noted by the EPA a year ago, actually almost 2 years ago, and which includes putting a new casing on, extending it at 18 inches, repacking the surface infiltration packing, and then we would have to, and already have, take the water tank out of service. So if that gets approved, that well could still furnish water to the trail center and would not be furnishing water to any campgrounds. That'll probably never get approved again because of the type of system that goes to the campgrounds. We'd have to put in a public water drinking system, which we don't have now. And, the cost of doing that, then you'd be back to having a tank, a big tank, because you have to plan on the total number of people that would ever be there. And it puts you back in that public utilities groove, similar to what we have at the lake. And I guess my opinion of that is, right now, we don't have an option. We would have to, we've been told to take that out of service, and it has been, as has the water permits, that they used to haul water from us to their cabins. That's been gone for a number of years because of the ruling. So simplifying it, we need to fix the well we have, which has plenty of water in it to provide the trail center. It really didn't have enough water in it to provide everything else we were doing, because about this time of year, we ran out of water. But at the same time, when we're going to look at that, if it gets approved, we're going to probably put a new pump in that well, because the one that's in there's been in there 25 years. And it's just time, long for going through all this, to change out the pump, so we don't have to deal with that in the middle of winter or something. So hope to hear back some good news. I mean, basically DEQ pretty much told us over the phone that they're okay with it. Now we got to get EPA, and then we'll have to submit a design, and then we'll have to get somebody to go up there and perform the work.
Mike, is there a possibility of providing non-potable water to the campgrounds?
Well,
I mean, if we isolate that and we classify it as non-potable, to reduce that, and what I'm thinking about is more for cleanup, fire hazards and stuff like that, to make that available to people. It would have to be classified that way. But I wasn't sure if that's a possibility that we could do, so we
Yeah, I
could
don't know.
continue to
We
utilize some of the systems that we do have.
didn't address that. I mean, we have what we call non-potable water at the lake, where you wash out your camper and whatnot, and the spigot won't let you hook it up to anything else. But
Well, I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking
add
about,
that
is just
on.
having something where you can basically just fill up a bucket or something else.
yeah, well, we talked about maybe setting some fire barrels out, because that's the biggest complaint we've had. And I had a gentleman call just last week that, said he would have put out a smoldering fire had he been able to get water. Most everybody that's going up there short of tent campers is hauling 60 or 80 gallons of water in their camper with them. We've been out of compliance for some time with that system.
Sure.
And until you get somebody sick, it's probably not an issue, but about the time you get somebody sick, even if you label it non-potable and somebody drinks it, we still provided it. That's the issue. And I don't think right now, if we try to add that on to what we're trying to do, it's probably going to kill the whole program with EPA, because how do you guarantee somebody's not going to drink off of something that's contaminated?
Well, you can't guarantee that anybody's going to do anything. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do. You can't guarantee they're not going to go down and drink out of the creeks either, as far as that goes.
Right, but we're not providing it.
Sure, but if it's listed, it's just like out at the lake, that you do provide something. People can carry a lot more if all they're doing is carrying their drinking water, and that's what they're using, and they can use some of the other stuff, to wash dishes or something else, it makes it go a lot further, I guess is all I'm looking at. And then, like I said, the fire suppression is a big thing, because if they don't have any way to put out a fire, a lot of things can be put out in short term if you have the resources available, but if you don't, it can get out of hand in a hurry. I'm just throwing that out. I
Well,
haven't explored that, and so I'm just asking.
It's gonna kick us back into the category of having to build a brand-new tank, a pump house, a heated pump house. I don't think they'll.
Would you
because
have
it's
to have
coming out
a,
of our system that is
would-
potable.
yeah, but
I
would,
don't know how they're gonna declassify it to
but would you,
non-potable.
would you have to have a heated tank if you just turn that system off during the wintertime? I mean, if you only turn it on during the summertime where you have that available for a short amount of time, like from
That's all
June.
we are, that's all we are, and to be honest with you, they didn't even know the lodge was hooked up. So we're jumping through those hoops right now. They thought it was just all campground use, and we shut off for the winter, which we used to,
Yeah.
but we've always provided water to the lodge.
Well, I thought that was the reason why we were looking at a heated tank was
Well, they
provide that
they
water to the
dictated that
lodge.
because of the number of people that go through the lodge.
Yeah,
And it's not like you're just serving two people.
no,
They look at the worst-case scenario, and that's what you have to build it for. So
sure.
it's expensive. I mean, we
Sure.
were looking at close to $1 million to do that tank and the heated building. And this way, we don't have to do that. We might have to put a pressure tank in, a little pressure tank, just to pump water when the well pump shuts down, unless we use a variable speed pump, and then we might not have to. But I'm not a water guru, but that's what I'm being told. So, yeah, it's at the stage of the game we're in right now, to throw that in there is to drag us out a year, if we can even get this done before winter hits.
Okay, yeah. I guess what I'd like to see us do is look at the option, not necessarily putting it in right now, but for future expansion, so that we don't lose that. And I understand what you're saying. This year, we need to get things up and running and get it moving to make sure that we have the lodge, that water supply to the lodge, and is taken care of appropriately. But in the future, if this is something that we can do, I just hate to write it off. And since we already have the piping in place, and if we can set up where it is a non-potable system, where people will at least have that option, I think it would be good.
We can ask them. What the question is that they're gonna ask is, how are you gonna keep it from backflowing?
Well, you can put a
To the
you can put a backflow preventer in there. That's not that difficult, once you have it downstream. I mean, that's no different than everything else that you do, domestic or
Yeah, well,
commercial.
we can ask them, but
So,
I wouldn't ask them to do it right now.
no, like I said, all I'm asking is that we just look at that for
Okay.
future reference, not right now.
Mike, how many people were using water or permitting water from us up there? Fill their tanks?
Golly, we had, gonna test me there. It was extensive. I mean, we sold a lot of permits.
Just curious. I mean, it's not something for the Parks Board, but the county commissioners, to provide that service, and now taking it away, maybe there's some grants or something that they could get that system back up and running.
Well, the problem was, we didn't have the water. I mean, we would start running out of water, and then we cavitate the pump, and, the system was never designed for that, nor are we allowed to be a public utility.
No, which is why we went out for a new well, correct?
No, we were going out, the new well, what it dictated was we were gonna still service the campgrounds, we were gonna service the lodge, and we were gonna put a tank in if we had to, unless we could do it all with pumps, and then that we were just gonna build a building that would have these pumps in it. But they pretty much came back and said you have to have enough storage on site to serve all the people if the pumps go down, basically. So then you have a tank. and it just gets convoluted from there.
Okay.
And our system that's underground right now, serving all the campgrounds, has so many leaks in it, it's just black pipe. And we've spliced it and, really don't even know where half of it really goes. Some of it goes through a swamp. I mean, it's not a good deal. But, and the comments we've had, it hasn't been so much that I don't have any water, it's that, and I've had maybe 2 or 3 calls is, how do I put out a fire? But, the old way of putting out a fire was with a shovel. And most people bring their water if you're gonna do that. I do. But, it's a re-educational process. But we talked in the last meeting maybe about putting out water barrels, in the campgrounds. We'd have fire water, if that's what you really want it for. Wouldn't be drinkable, but they'd be labeled different and, have some way of getting the water out of them to do a fire. But I think there's, if I remember right, there's like 13 spigots that go through Bear Trap and Deer Haven all together. Those are the only 2 campgrounds that are served with water. Struby Loop doesn't have it, and Tower Hill doesn't have it. Can't get it there because of the elevation, but that system's way old. I mean, it's, if we were gonna do that, we'd have to apply with the EPA and DEQ and pretty much put a water system in. And, it's a matter of how much you want to spend. But right now, we need to get the well. Any other questions? Okay, signage. I provided some examples at the last meeting of some kiosks that are available. Tina did call or text me today. She took some pictures of some on a road trip she was on and sent them to me. She said she wasn't gonna be able to be here tonight. I forgot to mention that earlier. But I have those. I haven't really got a lot of feedback on the ones I provided, but there was some thought from some folks that, if in this instance we were gonna redesign or have to rebuild the lodge, that maybe we wanted to make all the kiosks look like whatever the architecture of the lodge looked like and that kind of thing. I've heard some of that, so I guess I'm kind of right now hanging out there on ordering kiosks, because until we come up with what everybody wants to see.
I talked to a number of people, Mike, on just showing them the designs that you showed us. And the design that everyone picked out was the 3rd design with the 3 panels with a roof. And the question that came up, as long as they were locking panels, so people that were supposed to be putting stuff in there could have a lock in there.
So you're talking about that one right there?
You're hiding
Yes.
it. You're hiding it.
Yeah, it is.
It is, okay.
Okay,
It would be, I think it was the 3rd one on the list,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, they'd have the locking panels and
That's what I thought.
plexiglass or whatever.
I thought that'd give us enough.
Vandal resistant, I'll say.
Right.
Okay.
So I guess my question on that would be if we could come up with a suggestion or a plan for the design of the kiosks, what kind of time frame are we looking at to get those installed?
Well, we've got the grant, I got that grant extended till next August. So we have a little bit of time to make that decision, along with some other decisions we're probably going to be faced with as far as the architectural look of things. If that's still an issue that they, if we come up with something different or not, I'll get into a little bit of that here in a minute. But yeah, we could probably put some out to the public, I guess, and have a meeting on that, or a little get together somewhere and see what everybody thinks, user groups. If they, you probably talked to a number of them on what you came up with there.
Right, I did.
I mean, there's a magnitude of them out there. I just
Yeah.
threw some of them off the internet at you. So whatever anybody wants to see, we can probably build within reason of the grant. But we have till August of next year to spend that money.
Well, I have basically 2 things that come to my mind about that. One is, I want this is just my personal opinion, that the structures that we put on the mountain should flow together. And I think there have been some public comments about that as far as all of the county structures that were put up, including Ponderosa Shelter and those things, should flow to some degree. I mean, they can't match exactly, but, and I think we're looking at the same thing here, and I've talked with you about that, that I think the kiosks should complement what we're going to do with the lodge, which means time. And I hate to, obviously, we're not gonna go past August, and I don't wanna drag this out anymore, but at the same time, it would be nice to have complementary structures. So if we had some idea what we were gonna do with the lodge, we could probably come up with something that way.
Well, and spinning off of that, the gentleman that's looking at the shelters design, you know, maybe it can go along with something, whatever we come up with there
Exactly.
through those public meetings, and spin off of that to look like that, whatever
Yeah.
that ends up being.
And I think that would be, that's the way that we need to look and move, yeah.
Okay.
I think the Nordic Club has looked at that also, Mike, as anything they've built up there, whether it's the starting shed or the storage sheds, if all look like the lodge that is in
Yeah.
cahoots right now.
Well, rightfully so.
Right, you know, the same color roof and the same, half logs and whatnot, trying to make everything look alike. I think that's what Roy's trying to, look alike, everything looks alike instead of just mismatch.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say that everything has to be perfectly matching, but I think it should complement. So that's what I think we should look at.
Okay, I think we're going down that track then. I also scheduled a meeting with Jeff Sun, who's an instructor up here at the College for GIS, and we've worked with him before doing projects on the mountain. I think some of you are familiar with that. But his students are going to, on September 2nd, I got to go up to the college and meet with them, and our IT department's going to go along as well. And they're going to go out on all our systems up there, all the trail systems that the ones that are authorized trails, and get what's there or not there for signing and catalog it in such a way that we can work with it in GIS. Other than, the last time they did this, we got a great trails map, but we didn't get data points of where everything was. So they're gonna refresh that in a sense, come up with all those data points, what signs there, take a picture of it, and maybe even some ideas where signs should be, that kind of thing. And then we can all look at those maps, maybe put a task force together, whatever, to do that, and come up with a master signing plan that will overlap our park system as well as the biathlon, so it all makes sense, especially the 911 numbers, because we have a conflict there now. So we don't have anything right now we can really pin down and say, we know we have something here. So this will cure that, I think. And really all we have to do is pay these students mileage, which is not very much. So I thought that's a pretty good deal. And provided they open school.
And just to make, clarify, all county trails would be the McMurray Biathlon area, the existing Nordic trails,
Right.
summer and winter use trails?
Right. I mean, we're not gonna venture on private land or any of that. If there's a trail going there, we're staying within the parks, but that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, which one on the private land would you be talking about?
Well, there's some that came up in the
Bishops.
last meeting where there's some that go up to private land, and we're not gonna go there. We don't have them signed now, but they maybe need to be signed if you're entering private land.
Streets.
Something like that, but most of the trails, we acknowledge and groom and take care of are pretty well-known and mapped now. Jeff has done some of that. We just don't have the signing on there. So, I mean,
I think the two landowners we're concerned with is Bishops and Streets, maybe? I'm not sure
Yeah,
about Streets, but it's real close to Streets
I think
property
it's
up on.
Streets.
Yeah.
yeah. So they're gonna be aware of that.
I think we also give them an easement year-round to get into their little place.
Bishops.
Streets back in by the North 40. They use a trail system to get into their cabin
Yeah.
or tent, whatever's back in there.
Well, I think in Bishops, it gives us an easement right below the shop to
Yes.
go over to the
Right.
cafe. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So I'll move on. You got any more questions on that, on the signing? Biathlon, Kathy wanted to be here tonight, but she called and said she wasn't going to be able to make it as well. She wanted to talk about some things that were going on up there. She'll make the next meeting, she said. But I met with Kathy and another gentleman she brought in, and we discussed, a master plan for the trails, and where we're headed with that. And so Central Wyoming Trails Alliance and any of the user groups, we're planning on setting up a meeting to talk with those folks and get these maps that we're trying to get out with it'll kind of piggyback in with what we're doing with signing, but we have maps we can work off of right now. And their question was, they had some trails they wanted to improve, and one of them went to some of that private land. And they'd already been out there. They hadn't done anything, but they were, just researching it. And my thing is, and I think we were in agreement at the last meeting, is that we don't have a master plan for what we want to see in trails, or how big we want to be, or how little we want to stay, or whatever the question is. And I think, you, just speaking from past experience, this comes up all the time, and we try to go do things, but we don't, it's like, in my opinion, like laying out a town, streets all one direction, and where all the hills are, and where all the valleys are, and where all the pitfalls are. And when you're done, you're done. And you have a system. And I don't want to shut anybody's opinions down or visions. It's just that I think that somebody ought to take the initiative to get it on paper and look at a big picture over a period of time. And at the end of that, and we only have so much land. So at the end of that, unless we acquire more land, you wouldn't really have more trails. And see what that picture is going to be, and work on that in a phasing, you phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3, because it's going to take obviously money, and it's obviously going to take money from the county if they're going to be groomed trails, it's particularly in the winter, that we need to adjust all that in planning. So I think there's a lot of good ideas, from horse trails to walking trails to bike trails to, everybody's got something they want, and I just think you ought to put those layers on, and we can do it in GIS, and then start working on it. And work on an area that you can get done, and then before you go to another area, so that you have a finished product. I just think that makes sense. So that's kind of where we're going to go with that, with a team effort, and all these groups working together with their ideas. And because a lot of people have been out there, they know some of this better than I do as far as where these trails are, just to be honest. So we need everybody's input, but somebody's got to take the initiative to say, this is where we're going to start and this is where we're going to stop. And the reasons why are somewhat obvious to me.
So one of my concerns with this is, I've been in contact with the CWTA recently. I think Jim has probably talked to some members of CWTA. Commissioner Kaufman has talked with members of CWTA. And then now you have talked with members of CWTA. And we've got basically 3 different lines of communication going with the same group, talking with them about the same thing. And I think we just need to organize that. We need to have, I think this is something that we need to be involved in. The Parks Board needs to be involved in this process, because as users, again, I think that's part of our purview, is to collect that information from the public on what they want, different user groups and things like that. So I feel like, we all need to be involved in this as it goes
Yeah.
forward. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to see it be something where they're going directly to Parks Director or, maybe somebody has a good line of communication with one of the commissioners and they're talking to them. We need to establish a communication method so that everybody, all these user groups know who to talk to and how to, if we want, somebody, say, a horse group wants to use a trail or establish a trail, they know who to go to and talk to about it. And then we have a process that we go through to yay or nay that.
Well, I think whether it's me or somebody else, I think that should be the Parks Director that brings it to the board. There's your one line of communication. And then if it goes higher up than that to the commissioners, I mean, it flows out of here to do that, but you gotta start somewhere and somebody's gotta organize it. And I didn't call any meeting, this just came to me, through Kathy. And I heard some from Brooke on some of it. I mean, you're all hearing stuff. But it needs to be directed somewhere so that somebody can work on it. And then whether it's a task force, a group of, out of here, a couple of you or whatever, or some of those folks that we set up a task force that looks at it, works on it, and then we get a final product. That seems like the most reasonable way to do it, and maybe have some public hearings on that too, is, where people can come give their input before you actually, rubber stamp the thing. But, I mean, you pretty much know who the people are and the groups. And this really doesn't have anything to do with the lake, yet. I mean, there could be stuff developed out there as well, but I mean, we're talking on Casper Mountain right now. And the area that we have to work in, that the county's responsible for. And when we get outside of that, really, the county's not responsible for BLM land or state land or private land. And there's some of that in the mix. So I just think it needs to be focused on the park, or parks, and get that done, and then if it leads to other things, that's different decisions have to be made at that point. But, right now, and this is my experience, this thing's been kicked around for 18 years. I've been here, and it's still not done. So, I'm trying to direct it to put a team together, get all the questions answered, the ideas on paper, and do something with it. I'm not the expert on trails, but, I mean, I can sure facilitate the meetings, and we can get it on paper, and then somebody approve it. The board and the commissioners say, yeah, that's great, that's what we want to do. But right now, it's every year you come up with somebody wanting to go somewhere, or backtrack on something, or, Jim, you've been there, you've heard it, and I just think as a group, we need to take some directive and have some direction and move with it and phase it in. I don't see, commission changes, Parks Board changes, and you have nothing set that keeps moving ahead because of that.
And I totally agree with the master plan concept. That was something that I had talked with I talked with the new president of the CWTA, and that was exactly what I said. You need to have a 5-year plan with phases and all of that, and put this on a map so that we can see it. And then, so I think they're working on that. But my secondary concern to that is that as far as expenditures, like how much this costs the county, it's negligible. The amount of money that we spend on these trails is very, very small. The benefit from them is big and could be huge as far as making Casper a travel destination for people, families coming into Casper who are here for another event or who knows what. They're here for a weekend for something, need something to do with the family. They can go up on the mountain. The number one thing that I hear again and again and again from people coming in is that we don't have signage, and we don't have maps, and we don't have a way for people to get around up there. This is something that we've been trying to solve for years, and so that needs to be fixed. And that would just be a huge improvement to that area. The second part of that is the group that is doing that work, that labor voluntarily, their attention span is moving and shifting to other things. We're losing that volunteer network of trail builders and maintainers that make that system like almost a zero cost to the county. And the reason that's happening is because with changes in park directors and things like that, it's just been static for about 3 years now. And
Understood.
quite frankly, the groups out there are just, they're either doing their own thing and just randomly taking care of business, doing what they think they want, or they're just moving off and doing something else or somewhere else. And so that's my secondary concern, is that we're losing that volunteer network of very low-cost workers and maintainers that we have had or could have.
Yeah, well, there's other avenues to get volunteers, and University of Wyoming's come in and worked with us for free. I mean, but you know, there again, if you have a plan, you can keep that moving. And new people come out every year and say, hey, I want to do something. I mean, all of us have seen that, volunteer people that, you know, yeah, that's reoccurring, I think. If we have a plan, if we have something we can say, go do this. But right now, it's just like these people I've talked to the other day, they're going on private land. I can't authorize that, you know, wouldn't even begin to. So if we had a plan, they'd know we can't go there. So it's very simple, I think, to get it on paper. It's just, you need some people that want to work on it. I mean, you need the input so that everybody feels they're involved, and they got great ideas. That guy I was talking to the other day, he'd gone to start that night. I mean, honest. He'd already been out there, already flagged stuff. So then when I told him he's on private land, that was a whole different story. He said he showed me on a map where he was. So, I mean, he just saw a trail. So, you know, those are the things that are, you know, we don't want to do that. We got enough land to develop that shouldn't be a big issue, really. I mean, we can make loops and new trails, and in my opinion, without getting out of our properties. And then you have to decide how many trails do you want. We're not going to probably resolve that tonight, but
No.
we kind of got off track there a little bit.
How would you communicate that to us, Mike, on when folks come to you to say, we'd like to trail here? How would you get in touch with the board on this is what has come to us?
Well,
Would be
just like I
through-
am right now, I mean, I'm telling you, I've had some people come. My problem is I don't have a document I can lay out there and say, yeah, go do this, that's approved by this board or the commissioners. I mean, it's all great, you know, there has to be some guidance, and there has to be some control, and there has to, you know, you've heard a lot about building these trails to standards lately. You know, are we gonna do that or not? You know, is a volunteer gonna just do it, or are they gonna do it to the standard, or are we gonna come back later and say, oh, it's all done, but it's not to any standard? You know, there's a lot go into this in my mind, from what I'm hearing and getting educated on just since I've taken this over is, you know, there's a lot more to it if you're really gonna, if you're gonna build a trail for bikes, it's a lot different than a trail you're gonna build for a horse, and it's a lot different than the one you're gonna build for skiing. And, so those are issues that, you know, what's the priority, where do you want to start? You know, we got a lot of ski trails. You know, and all those we got is a lot of great bike trails that are built to any standard. And can you know, in some of our country, can we? We might not be able to, but people still ride it. I'm just saying there's a lot there. How far do you want to go with it, and what are the guidelines? And I don't want to be the one that sits here and says this is what we got to do. I mean, I'm not really the one qualified to do that. It needs to be a team effort with people that do it, and then, you know, is it realistic and reachable as far as, you know, volunteers and financing? And the time of the year you can do it is pretty short, so it's seasonal.
Yeah, summer's getting away from us.
Well, yeah, a lot of it's not gonna happen this year. I can just be honest about that.
Mr. Chairman, it does sound like to me that we need a volunteer on this board to head that committee up. One
As
of you
far as
guys.
like a task force,
Yep, to get a task
trails
force
task
going or
force.
started. It's
And,
gonna be a job, as Mike says, but
Well, I guess my idea would be that we could designate one or two members of the committee to be involved with that.
I think we have been involved in it, we just haven't had much involvement with the user groups that are coming up with a plan.
Yeah.
They just keep on giving us this little deal, and we keep asking for a plan, but nothing comes up with any of the user groups, and that's where I think we've been stalled. We've pushed it, I think, as a group, but, as a board, but nothing has come up on the other end, so we're in the same spot.
so right now we're waiting for the users groups to give us a plan?
Well, I think CW,
They're
TAs.
basically the only one that has expressed enough interest to actually sit down and put together a plan.
in our last meeting, Stuart, we asked Ben Smith, who's the new president, is to come up with a 1 to 3 5-year plan
Right.
on a master plan and what they would like to do for bike trails. And they said they would like to do that. So I think that's what they're in the process of doing, but it's not going to be tomorrow,
No,
Yeah.
so that's just gonna be the bike trail part of it.
right?
Then we're gonna need the ski trail part of it, the hiking part of it.
I think that's something that needs to be clarified. I think everybody, and when I say everybody, I mean the trail building people with CWTA are all of the mindset that any trails that are built are multi-user trails. They're not just bike trails. They're designed to Forest Service standards for hikers, bikers, and equestrians. And everybody involved in this understands that. And I agree with Mike's point that you have volunteers that don't have a clue as far as, they're happy to go sling a shovel, but they don't have a clue how to build a trail. And that, so we do have to have a control system in place, and that's why we went with the MOU to make CWTA basically the funnel for trail building and development and maintenance, was because they had that knowledge base for building those trails.
Sounds like it should probably funnel through us.
Well, as far as the where the trails should go and things like that, again, I agree with Mike that there has to be a long-term master plan for a series of steps of where we're gonna build trails, how many trails we're gonna have, and how they're going to interlace, and who the user groups are, and all of that needs to come first. And I think that CWTA is working on that, but what I would like to see from our end is, so when they've got this done, how does that process look? And if it goes to Mike first and then comes to us, or if we have a couple of members of our team here that are involved in that process, I just don't want to see us lose any more of this volunteer input and the volunteer efforts that we've got going. I just like to see us maintain that.
Something we need to talk about when we get Tina back too, I guess, and see if we can get something more formal going so we can get it started.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, that we have CWTA looking at a master plan. It sounds like the biathlon group is looking at a master plan for ski trails on the east side of the mountain. So I think things are starting to take place. We want to make it quicker.
I don't think it'd take that many meetings. I mean, if you get those groups at the table, first one might be a little wild, but I mean, as you get a little organization to it, I don't think, going through the winter or whatever, have some meetings and get something then that you can air to the public and go from there. I mean, there's only so much land up there. I mean, we've got a lot of trails. So it's an idea of how many more do you want parallel in each trail that's there, or do you? And, there's a lot of values that, to me, you get too much going on, you lose some of the aesthetics of what you have. So there again, without putting that on paper and seeing where it all ends up, nobody really sees that from a bird's eye view. And I think, there hasn't had a lot of planning originally. There's trails that we don't use anymore that they found out weren't skiable. And, there's things that have happened that there's a lot of people that should have input. The guy that grooms ought to be the one to say, look, that can't go there. That part of the pie has to be in there too. It's easy to say, well, that's a great place to put a trail, but the guy that grooms knows he can't do it, or the snow won't be there. And we've had that issue. I've dealt with that. And so we don't even work on that trail. So I don't want to see that continue either. It's just, there's a lot goes into this, but I mean, if we can get everybody in the room and get through the first meeting and have a few more and get something going on paper and start in an area that you can accomplish something, so that everybody sees a win.
Agreed.
Okay. We beat that to death. Trail Center Maze, Harry Brubaker was working on that outhouse, and we've come up with a temporary fix for the winter to put a post and board railing around that, and then next year, we're gonna do the concrete work to where it's finished off for the ramp that'll be ADA compliant all the way around that new outhouse. And planning has looked at what he wants to do and says that's okay. So, because of the time we have to deal with right now before winter, that's what he'd like to do. And he was talking about us writing a grant or getting a grant to actually do the work next spring, which is probably really doable. Or we can fund it too, I'm sure.
Mike, was he gonna come up with a plan on that, or who is gonna come up with the plan? I know the dirt work that he has completed is ASD, or SDA approved now, without the hand railing around it, so that's why it's not being used at this time.
Right. Well, he came up with a plan, submitted it, and talked to Jason Gutierrez, and he okayed that for the winter temporary use. And then next year, he'll actually put the concrete in all the way around the building, so it's ADA grade, and it'll have a different railing system on it, and should really look nice. He just doesn't have the time to do it right now.
Right. More of that.
Yeah, well, it's getting late.
Sure is.
Okay, Rotary Park Bridle Trail, we're still trying to make some decisions there on that one. The contractor is, got his notice of award, but we haven't signed a contract with him yet. So, Ponderosa Shelter, I spoke with Mr. Ginsbaugh. He got approval from Jason on the 11th. The drawings are approved. Building's under construction, and we should have that in there, I'm thinking in September is what he thought he'd have the building up there.
Hey, Mike, can you go back up to Rotary Park? So it says something about insurance and documentation. Just exactly what's the insurance issue? I mean, has he not provided his insurance, or what are we doing
No,
on that, or what's
we've got
going on?
all that stuff from him. Yeah, that's been collected.
So we're just
Yeah.
not moving forward, or?
Yeah, Brooke, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll just. Yeah, so right now, we are waiting on the commission to sign the contract, so I would anticipate that there's an opportunity or a window that we still need to get that done. There was something else, Dave, that I wanted to mention on that. Oh, so one of the things that came back pretty loud and clear, and you guys know this too, is, I mean, that trail, the grade or it's really difficult to design it to trail standards. But we did reach out and have somebody that's in the trail design business take a look at that to say, is it possible to add switchbacks or make that a little bit more friendly instead of just that 25% grade at the top? So they came back and had some feedback on how that might work. So Worthington Lenhart's been working through some of that too, to say, how do we, in the existing trail as it is, how do we make it the best trail it can be? So in listening to people say, hey, this trail's tough, we thought, well, we've got a window of time to just say, what are the tweaks that would be possible on this trail? So that's been the delay.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry, you were on Ponderosa.
okay. Bear Trap Meadows where we're at now.
Okay.
We had those roofs repaired for the winter. Obviously, we're looking at reconstructing those next spring. With State Line has given us a proposal. That hasn't gone before the county commissioners yet. It will at their next meeting. And we'll get started on that. And then that will probably piggyback into maybe what these kiosks could end up looking like as well, depending on what we come out of that with on the design of those three structures. And I anticipate they'd probably all be the same, but whatever we come up with, and that'll get shown to the public before there's a decision made.
Mike, on that, you say there's no demolition in here, but there's not going to be a,
Well, this is just to design it.
okay,
Yeah,
all right, so this is just a
of the
design.
building and to vent it with the public, and then he would handle also going out to bid. At that point, all that would be put into the bid documents as to what we were gonna do there.
Okay, do you know if we're going to be able to use the existing foundations, or are we going to have to start over from scratch?
Well, I've looked at them, and, you know, when you try to make everything ADA compliant, it's probably not realistic to use those old foundations. It's probably just easier to start over and get everything on grade, and then build your ADA away from that, because they have to be ADA compliant now.
Sure.
The ones we have aren't. You can come out of them and fall 3 to 4 feet, you know, and people have. But, so I think, you know, the footprint of where they are is probably where they'll be. Size and all that's probably gonna be determined. They won't be any smaller than they are. They might actually be a little larger. But, it depends on what the design is and what we can, you know, afford, I guess. But, no, I think it'll be a good project, and I think people will be happy with it. It won't take that long to put them up, as soon as they're bid out, and the snow's off them out. I'm already talking snow.
Yeah, there's a big if.
No, we get them up next year, easy. So any other questions on that one? Move on to Pathfinder and Alcova, the road maintenance project out there. Worthington Lenhart's got it all ready to go. I spoke with them today on the phone. They're ready to go out to bid. We're hung up a little bit right now on the ADA drawings for the 2 picnic shelters that we're gonna go down in the cabin area. We actually used the Bureau's online document, and somewhere on there, there's a microscopic piece that said it's not for construction, so they won't let us use that. So CPI has to draw that up, and they're in the process of doing that right now. And then they'll okay them. All the NEPA studies have been done and everything, and I directed them to go ahead and start getting it ready to go out to bid today, in anticipation that the Bureau's gonna approve it next week, once they see the revised drawing. It's a very similar drawing to what we had at Okie Beach, but we can't use the one from Okie Beach. So, long story short, we're working on that one. And I anticipate it going out to bid, depending on the contractors right now are pretty loaded. I mean, this, had it gone out earlier when I wanted it to, we'd probably had some decent bids. Right now, we're probably gonna get front-end loading on them because they're so busy. There may be a few that bid it as to start it after the spring, because even though they can work out there pretty well into winter, it's one of those things that it's hard to bid and not know you're not gonna be dealing with snow. So, and they've got to travel on Cordis Road to do Cottonwood and Black Beach, and then they can't do the cabin area until those two projects are done. That's what the Bureau's directive is. So, those two shelters, I'm trying to get them put in right now by the contractor that's building the bathhouse, because he's there and he's putting other shelters up. So he's got the shelters ordered. They're coming. I just can't put them in until I get this other approval. So I was trying to kill two birds with one stone there, and it's not really working out as well as I thought it was going to.
Shelters that'll never be used.
Yeah, you're probably right. Well, cabin owners might use them, but I'm gonna use one the first day.
You already are. Didn't think so.
They're not there yet.
They're on a truck. Anyway, they're gonna be nice, and they have to be ADA compliant, so. that
Why
was-
can't we use the ones from Oakland?
They didn't approve those drawings originally when we did Okie Beach. That stuff didn't go through the Bureau. It does now. Anything over $1,000 now is going through the Bureau, according to their new guideline, which everything ought to just go to them and come back to us then, because who knows if they're gonna approve it.
Oh, ridiculous. Okay.
Drone flight, that is back in the hands of CEPI to correct the data that didn't transfer over when we sent it over the first time to the Bureau. I'm not good at explaining this, but the layering is all messed up as far as colors. If they wanted to turn on deck features and look at everybody out there that's got a deck, well, everything else lights up at the same time, so it's very confusing what you're looking at. It's just a minor fix. When they use AutoCAD to fly it and converting AutoCAD to the GIS function, when they converted it, it scrambled some of it. And so CPI is working on that now to alleviate that problem. It'll be neat when they get it fixed, because the part that does work is really neat. And the flight is amazing. I mean, there's not any way anybody can say they didn't know what was out there, because it's very obvious. So that's an update on that. Lights at the boat ramp at Pathfinder, the Walleye Club was furnishing those lights, and the company that was ordering those lights submitted that. We submitted that to the Bureau, and the Bureau came back that they were too bright. They were too invasive for the atmosphere at night. What do they call it? Not the infiltration, but they got a word for it.
The lumen.
Well, no, it's contamination,
Yeah,
light
light
contamination.
contamination.
And so this company that bid it is trying to find a light that'll come into compliance. However, after I thought about it a little bit, we've got the sites approved by the Bureau and everything. They did the NEPA, but if this winter, we're going out with an RFP to design that campground up there at Pathfinder, and some of these will probably have to get moved anyway. So I'm gonna recommend that we wait and throw that into that engineering plan. These guys can still furnish the lights, but, but maybe by then we can find one that's acceptable, that's solar. They
Is there
want
a
them to be
process,
solar.
can they use a shade on those and reduce that, or filter system?
Well, that wasn't an option we were given. We had to cut the lumens back and trying to find that light. I mean, there's already other lights out there that don't comply, but I didn't bring that up.
Good idea.
So anything we do on this new master plan redesign out there could incorporate this, where these are gonna be placed, because we're gonna actually move dirt and move shelters that are there now and reconfigure that boat ramp and have more parking for boat trailers. So these are gonna really be in the way. So I'm gonna talk with them. They aren't having too much success in finding a light that'll work and still be worth putting out there. So So you know why that's on hold. Site modification process guidelines, they have provided me with their final draft of the site modifications guidelines, and I think you guys are familiar with those. Those were guidelines that we use to decide whether a deck could be replaced, or whether you could use concrete, or whether you could put a roof on, or whether you could remodel your cabin or rebuild your cabin. And they've come back with some, that's where that $1,000 thing comes in. Anything over $1,000 has to be approved by them. They put that wording in there. And so that's under my review right now, and they want me to send a copy back to them. It's gonna be what it is gonna be from them, and then that's gonna go out to the cabin owners and the trailer owners, so that they know what the guidelines are that the Bureau's gonna accept, and is what it is.
Can we see those guidelines at all? I mean,
Yeah, I've got a copy of them. They're redlined. I mean,
can you
they
send me a
haven't-
copy of that?
They haven't been finalized yet, but yeah.
Okay.
They're pretty much what we had, but like I say, they put a little bit more teeth in them. So this $1,000 thing is just about anything you do.
Yep. Thank you.
I'll get a copy of those to all of you.
Thank you.
Full hookup bathhouse, some of you may have been watching that project out there. If you're out there, they've started the block, they started paving yesterday. We've had a little struggle with, because they had previously rented a lot of those spots out starting in January of last year, of this year. We had no way of turning those people away, and so we've had to work around trailers being in there. And yesterday was one day they could have paved, nobody was in there, and then they had 3 days, 2 weeks ago, and they didn't get it done. So now their next window's at the end of the month, that we don't have anybody in there, because I blocked out a bunch, we just aren't renting them, so they can get their paving done. But it's going pretty fast. I think they're probably gonna get it done ahead of time, unless they run into some major problem with the bathhouse roofing and stuff. But the walls are about halfway up, and looks nice. And it'll really look nice when they get it paved all the way.
Be a huge improvement.
And everybody wants those spots.
And you're putting shelters up or?
Yeah, there's one big shelter. They poured the
Okay.
pad for that yesterday. And then each individual site has shelter, a little shelter on it, with the exception of one site they couldn't fit it in because of the retaining wall. And they got fire pits, water hookups, electrical, 2 ADA compliant ones in there, which will get very little use.
Right.
Would you have to put them in?
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So the master plans, Casper Water Ski Club's still under review by the Bureau, as is the marinas, and the Casper Boat Club one, they're reworking theirs so that they have a narrative to go with it versus just a map. I will tell you that I did get a letter today from the Bureau because somebody put in a new boat dock over at the ski club, and that was approved. But then while they were doing it, they put in a big pad, raised pad behind it, and the Bureau caught it. This happened 2 years ago. Well, they wrote me a letter today and said that they're gonna hold up the approval of the master plan until that comes out. So, I mean, they're putting teeth in things. So I gotta go out there and figure that one out. Tried to get Bart to do it, but he wouldn't do it.
He's no dummy.
He might go with me. Water and sewer system out there is functioning very nicely. We've got all the bugs out of that electrical, I think, knock on wood. And the final park rules and regulations, I will tell you that we Art and I went over a few of those the other day and changed a little bit of wording. We'll get them back through you. They gotta go back through Eric too, to simplify some of the state statute stuff that he's gotta deal with, the wording on, well, some of it was the way you're dressed, or can't be dressed, and minor things, but we'll run it by everybody again. It's pretty minor stuff. I can't remember, there was one other, the designated flight zone for drones. I took that out. If we permit them, we permit them. I mean, I don't see setting up a designated area you can go fly a drone, that we aren't eventually gonna have issues versus just permitting. If you want to fly bear trap, while bear trap's going on and you're a pilot and you get a permit from us, go do it. But to me, when you set up a designated area, nobody can tell me where the designated area was gonna be, but it gets a little messy because once they take off from there, we've allowed them to take off. We didn't permit it, but in a way we did, because we said it was a designated area. And then where they go from there is a whole nother story. I just think it's simpler to say if they're gonna fly, if somebody's a pilot, and that's kind of the way I think you had it worded, is you have to be a pilot. And you still were gonna get a permit anyway, but Tim had it in there that we were gonna have designated areas. And you got campgrounds, you got people going to camp. Most of them don't wanna see a drone. Some of them might have a drone, but we ran into that when we flew the lake, when CPI flew the lake. Stuart, and I think you brought some of this up, man, some people didn't even know what was going on. They were over their deck and their daughters were out there and what's this drone doing? And so I don't think it's a big deal because we still would permit if somebody was licensed and wanted to fly, and we allowed it, if it was for an event or a wedding. I mean, that's pretty controlled, I think, and we can set parameters on what you're gonna do versus take off from Bear Trap and fly over to Hogadon and get in trouble over there and then say, well, we gave you a designated place, so, but we don't have a lot of rules on that designated place. I mean, I think it's better to handle it through a permit and put some borders on it. You guys can look at it and get the exact wording when I give you the copies, but I can't remember exactly how we changed it, but there's,
Yeah,
in a
the
nutshell.
problem that you run into with drones, and I've said this twice already, I think it's worth repeating again, is somebody can take off from their private property and they can fly over any section of the county parks areas that they want to.
Yeah.
As long as they're not taking off and landing from the county parks, they can fly over that area, and people can be upset about it, but that is the federal law. And the FAA is the only one that has control of the
Right.
airspace unless it's a restricted airspace.
Doesn't it say something in there, though, they can't fly over people?
Correct, and that's in the drone regulations, and that is in those park regulations, that anybody
Right.
who would be flying would have to fly either as a Section 337 or Part 107 rules and regulations, which address all of that.
But see, I'm having trouble when we say designated area. I don't know
Yeah, and
where
I
camera's
agree
gonna
with you
be.
about the designated
Yeah.
area. I was not a fan of that in the first place. My feeling is that if we're going to restrict it, then you need to have exceptions, which would have to be handled by permits for
Okay.
specific events.
Okay, well, we're kind of on the same page there, and then I'll get them to you, and you guys can look them over, and then they need to go to Eric again, and then they need to get, Eric's gonna advertise them, for that public period.
Well, any idea on the timeline as far as getting that done?
Pardon?
Any idea on the timeline?
Nah, not till they go through Eric, I don't. He told me the other day, he wanted to see them, and then he was gonna advertise them.
Glad we had a special session to get those done. Mike, yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
Before we go too much farther here, on the lakes, Alcova is dumping down, 39 feet this year? Are there any ramps that we can extend now? We're gonna have this area,
At
we have some
Alcova?
cash, yeah,
Why would you extend ramps at Alcoa?
Well, the one over there
So they can
by the
fish
canyon
in
would
winter?
be, the canyon would be a good one.
Well,
Right
yeah, I
there
see
before
what
you
you're
go
saying,
into
when it's
Fremont.
down to 10 feet.
So we did it a few years back for Okie Beach. We had them actually lower the water another 5 or 10 feet so we could do some ramps. I'm just saying, we have a possibility, well, we have 39 feet coming down. Can we use this time to do any more ramp repair or do any more
Yeah, it's-
extensions?
they-
It's concrete's not that hard. We could probably get that done this fall.
Yeah, if we could get the money. I don't have that in the budget.
Well, you have plenty of lake money.
I know, but it's dedicated to projects.
Yeah.
One of them's up at Pathfinder. One of them's this road
See,
system.
we haven't even been told that's happening, so, okay.
You haven't been told that,
That we're doing
Pathfinder?
Pathfinder next? Yeah,
well, we put it in the budget to do the engineering.
okay.
I think we talked about it, I don't know if it was talked about it in one of these meetings, I'm sure it was. I have to go back through some of the minutes for my time. Tim supposed to bring it up.
Yeah, you never could show us that. Okay. I'm just looking at that
But
time,
yeah,
that we
what
have a
you're saying-
chance to do those ramps, you know, because we have them long at Oki. Can we put them at, like you say, by the canyon or over on Cottonwood? Is there a place we can extend another one a couple, 10 feet, 15
Well,
feet?
yeah, it's not gonna be that simple, because I still gotta go through the Bureau's NEPA study.
I know.
They
I
gotta
tried
get-
to get to the
they gotta
last
get
guys,
in the
but, you
mud.
know.
They gotta get in the mud
Yeah.
when the lake's just down, and I don't know how that's gonna work. So,
We
you
have-
got a good point.
We have time, we could probably do something there. Looks like Pathfinder's down a bit. I have not seen the plans of what we're trying to do up there for a new campground. Are you
You
putting
saw
in
the
a-
master plan.
Yeah, but I don't think we changed that
No,
ramp.
we haven't.
So can we fix that ramp?
Well, we'd like to if the lake's down.
Is it down far enough? Because it's just right there,
It's down, it's supposed to go down 4 more feet, and then they're bringing it back up at the end of September. So we
Okay.
have 2 boat docks that are out of the water right now, one at Bishop and of course the one right there, Pathfinder. We can't anchor to anything anymore. I mean, it's down, and I've seen it further down when I don't know, must have been in '05 or something. It was way down.
Mhm.
People were, when it gets down like that, we can work. But when they're gonna bring it right back up, it's pretty tough to do something and get a contractor and then get caught with the water coming up. But same thing at Alcoa, I mean, it's not gonna stay down that long.
till the end of December, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got September or October maybe, but it's gotta dry out.
Yeah, you got October, November, and that's pretty much it, so.
But I could run it by them, I don't know what they'll say.
Or even ask, the Bureau, and they know we have troubles at that ramp at Pathfinder. Can they keep it down longer? Because that thing is killing those guys. You know that.
Yeah, and
And we've asked, and they let us do it before, and it's,
yeah,
Give and take here.
they've lowered Alcova for us before, but Pathfinder's a whole nother story.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
You can only ask, they
I don't
can,
have an answer.
they have 2 answers, yes or no, and if we don't ask, we don't get any answer. And we've got to do something with that ramp, that main ramp at the marina. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, okay.
So, thank you, Mike, that was very complete, and I appreciate the work that you've been doing, so I just want to say
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot, I'll just tell you right now, there's a lot of permits at the lake that are in limbo. I'm backtracking on them. The people are having to send me the paperwork they submitted, because I have none of it. And there's some of them are frustrated, but, it is what it is right now.
Right.
We'll get through it. But,
Well, I just
and
want
a
to
lot
say
of them
thank
are
you,
wanting
and
to
we
jump on this-
appreciate the work that you're
The
doing.
lake going down, a lot of them are wanting to do new boat docks and retaining walls, and that is not gonna get approved by the Bureau in the short window we have. I mean, it just isn't. But, it doesn't hurt to ask. Nobody really knows what that lake's gonna look like.
No.
Nobody's seen it down like that.
No, not for a very, very long time,
Can you drive down there? Nobody knows.
not in that mud hole.
There's gonna be people try.
They will, I've seen them when it normally goes down, yeah. I think they can make that island in front of the marina, not so much.
Okay.
There's no bottom.
No.
Anybody have any other questions for Mike? No? Then we'll move to public comments. Nothing?
You can dress up like that just not to comment, huh?
Tell you what.
You don't have anything to say? Okay.
We'll move to board comments. Stuart?
All right, thank you. Mike, again, thank you for all the work you're doing. I appreciate it. And we've been at this a long time, you and I. So it's nice to have you back doing some of this. Not yet, not yet. Soon, soon. What I really have going, rules, and we need to get those going. We've got to get those finished.
They're pretty much done. They should see them again in a year.
Okay. And, you know, the members out there, the landowners, land leaseholders in their private area with the public roads that, you know, our sheriff's department do work on, yet that's just all really frustrating, that we have to go spend lake money on things that the public will never use. Silly, but nothing we can do about that. Yeah, they're pretty angry about the roads. You know, we've been told, oh yeah, this year it'll be this spring. Oh no, it'll be this summer. Oh no, it's gonna be this fall. Now, next year. Yeah, I can see some folks not paying rent next year until this is done, and you can't blame them. As landlords, the county has been terrible. You know, years ago, we put money into the trailer park to help them, about, $160,000 in their private area to get electrical and sewer up to speed. Yet now we can't do that anymore. I don't understand why they can't work on those roads without all these rules. Yeah, maybe not.
And I'll just say this, we're the managers, but I don't feel like that right now.
And we got to think about that. You know, why are we involved? Well, they came to us to make a park and to manage it. And now they're making it so hard for us to do it. At some point, maybe the county walks out. I don't know, BOR, deal with it then. You're gonna make it this hard for us to do our jobs, to manage this our way, with local control. When do we walk away? That's really all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Dave?
I agree with Stuart 100%. You know, there's been a lot of stuff that the board's been, things that have been brought to the board, and we thought that they were moving forward, and they haven't been. And, you know, I just hope that we get things moving. And, you know, I do appreciate everything you're doing, Mike, and I know that there's a lot of stuff that you were handed that you weren't expecting, and that always makes it difficult. And doing this in addition to your full-time job, you know, with Road and Bridge, that it is a lot of extra work and everything else. And we appreciate what you're doing.
I
And
would say in the defense of the Bureau too, though, they've got a lot of things they have to answer to.
sure,
So we're not getting something that's 2 years old.
yeah. Well, you know, but it's not just the lakes. It's up on the mountain too, and things that, you know, we thought would be done by now that haven't been for whatever reason. And I'm not putting the blame on you by any stretch of the imagination, because we were led to believe that a lot of stuff was going to be done that hasn't been done. And so we do appreciate everything you've done.
Well, there's been a lot of things, nobody was expecting the lodge to do what it did. They just changed game plans all about this.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened this last year.
Well, the virus, and they shut the Bureau down, they were all,
Well, and it's done a lot of things to a lot of people. I mean, that's one thing. There's been a lot of stuff this year that has been beyond any of our control. And, you know, combination of the virus, the combination of what the Saudis and Russians did to our oil prices, you know, our economy's taken a hard hit. And it has affected everybody. And so, you know, I understand that. I just hope we can get moving and get some things done here pretty quick. So, thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
Well, Mike, ditto to the rest of the board members. I guess a question I have, and Jim was going to be here to answer these questions, and he cut out, so he had another appointment. So I don't know if, Brooke, you can answer some of the questions on the lodge situation. I know everything is contingent on the WARM, which I believe is the insurance company, and they haven't, I think they must have a bit bigger fish to fry than us on the lodge. So we're still in limbo, and Mike and I have been talking about it, and Jim and I and Brooke and I have been talking about it. We still haven't come up with an answer of what's going to take place. I don't think any of the board members have had an opportunity to look at the evaluation from the structural engineer. At least I haven't, and I'm not sure the rest of the board. So we really don't know what's going on or what the structural engineer people have said, except that it's not going to be used this winter. Talking with Jim today, Milne, he said something's going to be in place in the fall time, depending upon the decision of WARM on their evaluation and the estimate of the building. So again, we got winter coming on pretty quick. Last year, September, we had a big storm. And then once that happens, we just can't get things done up there. So I don't know if, Brooke, if you have an answer on that, or Mike, or,
I don't want to speak on Commissioner Milne's behalf, but I do know that he's reaching out to find temporary structures that we can place. So please know, it's acute. We know we've got to have a solution up there. Some of the initial stuff that came back from the structural, so I think we should ask Eric. I can't imagine that's something we can't share, but so if it is, we'll certainly get it to you tomorrow. But a lot of it was faulty design and some lack of maintenance. So I think the initial insurance payment that we thought potentially we would be able to access isn't near that. But we're very interested in a public-private partnership, which I know we've said to you before, with the school district, potentially the rec board and the county. So we do know we have to have a solution for this winter. I can't tell you it's going to have a full kitchen and, 16 restroom stalls. I don't think that's what we're going to be able to do. But Jim went up, and I think he has talked to you, Mike. If you have anything further on that, that's all I know right now.
Right, we've looked at some different temporary structures, small temporary structures. It's up there, built by, the idea would be, if, the lodge isn't functional, or in the case scenario that could be repaired, or, logistically, realistic to do it, versus something else, then obviously we're looking at another building there this winter. Ideally, though, we could probably use the sewer system or the water system that's there to that water, sewer, and toilets, would be the ideal situation. Jim talked to me a little bit too, the school district was a little concerned on, what do you do with all these kids? And especially if you had to shelter them, the lodge worked real well for that, temporary building put up there, probably in their house, a lot of kids. So there again, I don't know any more than the commissioners know right now. I know that the insurance company looked at it, and came back with a report that said it's deficient in many areas, never stamped by the engineer, a lot of issues. And my question was, whatever they decide to do, are they gonna insure it for the future? Is it worth putting money into if they aren't gonna insure it? You've got an out now, and so I don't know how much money you put in the dead horse. But, we definitely need to do something. I'm working with the idea that the well's gonna come online, and we're gonna have, septic that are utilized. And the other issue is, the lodge be there, and be removed, and stop removing, we gotta put a building in somewhere where we can look at the septic, and not be on the ski trails. And, that can all be done, it can't be done if it starts snowing. We're kind of at the mercy of the insurance.
Should we, as a county, inform the school district or write something to them? I've been in communication with them, but I'm just a board member. I don't know if we or the county commissioner should inform them that what's going to take place in the wintertime. What is your plan to shelter 200 kids? Maybe put a little pressure on them to look at being involved in the decision, instead of just us being involved. I just feed them information, and they just,
What did they do before there was a lodge? That's before my time.
it wasn't before mine.
what did
We used Skunk Holler, you know, that little building down there at Skunk Holler, we used that, and we had a 55, they just hung out. And we had a 55-gallon drum that we heated up the kids if they got warm. And we didn't have 200 kids. We had, you know, we had 15 to 20 kids, 30 kids that,
Yeah,
it was manageable, and parents drove their cars up there and kept them warm. But now that the school district's involved with a huge bunch of kids, I think they need to look at safety also.
Yeah, if they get older.
Yeah. It looks like fall sports, outdoor sports are going to take place. Cross-country, golf started today. So I think the winter sports look like a good,
Yeah, I don't have a good answer. I know we got some structures we can put up there pretty ready to pass. Water and sewer not being an issue.
yeah, I mean, the ground frozen may be
Well,
tough.
you know, if the lodge isn't there, you can set over what's there.
Right,
And you
right.
get power. If, you know, the lodge is still existing, you're not gonna do that.
Right.
You're gonna have to go alternate power source, you know, and, you know, and, worst case scenario would be four times.
Missed it.
How much of that takes care of 200 kids, I don't know, and then still have parking.
Right. Mr. L. Bogan is the person who contact for the school district who does the construction part, who's in charge of it. I think that's all I have.
That's all you have? Cool. Well, I would like to thank Commissioner Coffin for being here. We appreciate the board having presence here, and I would like to ask you a question regarding the Parks Director position and what the direction is, and if any decisions have been made as far as, Mike's doing a tremendous job, but he's got a lot of hats on right now, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, and I might put Mr. Hagler on the hot seat too, because we have talked about this at the commission level, and we've talked about how Parks is a beast, and I think we all know that, and it's really difficult to hire someone from a different place or off the street and say it's so much different even than a city park system. So what we've talked about is how do you get somebody under Hagler to work for 2 or 3 years as some succession planning to actually then be prepared to run parks, so somebody that he could really mentor and, you know, provide some education to, but over a period of time so that it's not, hey, we're going to turn them loose. So we have encouraged Mike to get some additional help to take that role on, whether that's a deputy superintendent of some kind. Obviously, we don't want to control exactly what Mike does. We don't control staff and their decisions in that way, try not to. But Mike, if you want to speak to it, but I know you're kind of feeling like, not now, so.
Well, not so much not right now. We got a full position on the mountain yet, the Joe, took over the lake and the mountain, and backfill so that they can, you know, be moved and help him manage. There's a lot going on in the organization right now, and putting out wildfires. Right off the bat, from the water system, lake, gas, and all the construction going on, so, you know, to be honest with you, I haven't had time to think about putting out an RFP for a, job description, you know, but, I was talking about with the commissioners, that was my idea, and getting somebody that,
So, Mr. Chairman, I think Mike has full support of the commission, and we've encouraged additional, like adding some depth in that, but that's, that's all I can speak to, is that we support it, and that's where we are.
Okay.
It's not a great answer, but that's, I mean, we really are supportive of, we know we need help, but I just think the way we've done it doesn't work, as we've seen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And as we've seen through the past, our biggest failure has been communication, lines of communication. We've talked about this several times. And, you know, whatever we do, we just need to have lines of communications, have plans in place for how to deal with these different projects and programs and groups, user groups. That would be my priority, is like, how do we keep them engaged in the loop? So, and I think everybody right now is just kind of tapping their foot, waiting to see what happens. And, you know, they'll only do that for so long, and then people are just going to take off and do what they do, and then we've got other problems. So the longer we leave it with, you know, and again, there's absolutely, I'm not poking any fingers at Mike or anything like that. It's just, I think people are kind of up in the air right now as far as where that is. So I don't know if there's something that we can do to explain to people what's happening, or what kind of time frame do you think we're looking at as far as putting out a job description?
I've been working on one on the mountain, and it has been about a day, and that's.
And I'm not trying to put you on a, you know,
Well,
like
I want to ask you a question, how do you think they are? I'm not trying to put you on the spot either.
No, I'm fine with it. Honestly, I would think we would need something in place, because we're going to be dealing with winter sporting events. I don't know, is Nordic skiing going to happen this year, do you think?
Who knows?
If it does, I mean, we need to have something in place to deal with, you know, just the grooming issues and all of the stuff that goes on with those winter activities and people on the mountain and events and things like that, if they even happen. I mean, there's so many things in the air that my feeling would be we probably need something in place, I would think, by the end of September. I don't know. Anybody else have any?
You mean a director position, or I'm not following you?
Somebody who is doing
Somebody's brand new
or
and knows nothing. It's what you're gonna get.
To work just like you're talking, to work under you.
Okay.
So
right,
you can
and that's
groom
what
it.
I'm talking
That's what
about
we're
too.
looking
Is,
at, yeah.
is you would have a position working subordinate to you, but starting to take the reins on some of those and take some of that load off of you. And I
Right,
would
but
see something like that,
You
or
don't understand, it's not that simple. I still gotta be there for a while. I mean, in those first meetings, that person's not gonna have a clue what to tell you. As
You'll be
you
doing
found
double
out.
work, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, here, it kind of goes back to having a master plan of trails. This thing's gotta kind of move a little slower than it ever did. When I had Kelly Estes working under me, we worked pretty good. He quit. I never even hired anybody back. I ran it for 7 years, I think it was, without an assistant. Then we got an assistant in, Margaret, and then we got Dick in when Margaret quit, and then Dick got promoted to the director. And, you know, I said that wasn't gonna work, and it didn't. But I was still there, but I didn't have any direction to run that person. And so, to be honest with you, I mean, they did what they did. So, you know, this thing's gotta be a little bit more structured than just to hurry up and we're gonna build trails and the people are gonna leave. I don't agree with you, Roy. Those people are there, they're looking for guidance and they're looking for a plan. And we need to direct that. We're the county. We need to direct that. There has to be direction. You just can't say, go do it, build it, and they'll come. Because you're gonna get what you got right now at the lodge, something that doesn't even hold up. I mean, so many volunteers sometimes don't just work out. We found that out the hard way. And I don't think it's anybody's fault. Everybody had good intent. But somebody's got to pick up the pieces down the road. And here I am for the third time, picking up the pieces. It's not easy. It's a mess. And I'm trying to put out fires right now. Having another person under me right now isn't really gonna help me, because I'm still gonna be at the lake or somewhere else, and he's gonna be sitting at a desk or beside me. He doesn't know anything yet, or she, you know, and you just don't bring somebody up to speed that quick. And in all fairness to them, I'm not gonna throw them out here and say, go work on this, you know, I'm not gonna give you, there's so much to know. I mean, this is a beast, water systems, properties, user groups. Yeah, that's why I asked you what you, this has always been the thing, we'll get somebody and turn them loose. And that has not worked. I mean, it's not fair to that person. These last few guys, it wasn't fair to them. Wasn't fair. And they didn't know anything. You know, and, you know, to be honest with you, when I came in here, I didn't know anything. But I got a lot of history. And I know what didn't work, and I know where things are, and I don't want to see those guys fall into traps that, you know, or the county, because we make bad decisions. And, you know, that's what really gets me, is we have nothing that continues forward. There's no plan. Yeah, if I quit tomorrow, what are you gonna do? What's the plan? You guys rely on me. And I'm not trying to make my head bigger than it is. I'm just saying, you don't have a master plan to run parks.
I agree.
I don't care what board's sitting up here, I don't care how many county commissioners there are. They come and go, and everything keeps changing. It's not like a city. City manager keeps things on track, and council changes, and the manager says, this is still the way we're going. County can't operate like that because of the way it's set up. It just doesn't function that way. And commissioners don't run employees, for one thing, and city manager does. Different systems. And I think that's why you see things fail so much in parks, is because nobody's ever sat down and said, let's come up with that master plan that the next board can keep working with, and the next commissioners can keep working with, and it makes sense to everybody, bought into it. And, you know, you're not going and hiring 6 different consultants every year to change the plan. You got to come up with something and stick with it and say, this is what we're going to be. We all do that with other stuff, you know. Build a house, you come up with a plan, and once you're into it so far, that's what you're getting. You know, you don't go back and change it. It's simple. It really is simple. It's just that everybody wants a fast track to something, and I can't get it for you. I can't. I mean, it's beyond me without thinking it through and getting the right people. And any one of us can drop dead tomorrow. What do you got?
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen
No,
tomorrow.
but I'm just saying, I'm trying to hold some pieces together right now for everybody's sake and get some things accomplished. And you have no idea you've seen my desk, some of you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I
That's
have an
all
idea,
work in progress.
not a big picture, but
And that's not even
an
talking about
idea.
road and bridge. And, you know, I'm kind of venting here a little bit, but, you know, this isn't a fast track. It really isn't. I mean, we need to have some plans.
Oh, that's what I'm looking for,
And that
is
person that's
a
coming
real
in under
answer,
me
so.
Needs to be understanding of those plans, you know, because ideally they're gonna take it over. And, but it isn't gonna happen in 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, fair enough, and I appreciate your candor. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Well, and I'm trying to help the commission. I mean, commissioners have had a meeting with me, and I mean, I pretty much said the same thing. But it is what it is. I mean, you can ask county, and she's new into the system. She sees the calls we get and how many don't come to the commissioners every day. And we put out a lot of fires. Until you sit out in that office, especially during the peak hours of summer for parks, you would never understand it.
Right, I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Kaufman.
I do have a few comments just quickly, and it's just based on some of the things that were talked about in the project list, Mike, so thank you very much, and thank you for the board. I mean, I feel like it always takes patience, and I feel like that's where we are at the end of every meeting. So the other thing I was going to mention is I know on the signage piece, in giving a nod to potentially what a new lodge might look like, we also talked about RDG. So I'm happy to help with that, so I just wanted to make a note. I also wondered, and I'm not as familiar with this plan as I should be, Jim, you might be able to speak to this. Does KLJ have anything about trails and master planning in the plan that the county approved but didn't adopt a few years ago?
They do.
So we should revisit KLJ, and then Bruce Lamberson has also showed me another study that I think we should look at and see if there's anything about the trail master planning in those. So I'm sorry I can't speak to those tonight, but I'm like, I think there's resources that could help. One of the things with biathlon that's on my mind, and Mike, this can be an offline, but I know you met with Kathy, is we had an MOU on grooming with them last year. So I know that the snow is gonna fly, and that's probably a discussion they're gonna wanna have. So we should probably look. So I know that hasn't hit our agenda yet, but we should have that. The bear trap shelters, so the proposal potentially from Lyle, I do think we've got to have a really good public process, so I did read through it, and I think the pricing looks great, his ideas are awesome. I think it is something where you'll be like, yes, these look great in concept, and how do we make them our own, and how do we get buy-in? So I'm not sure what the timeline will be, but the commission did put $90,000 in the budget next year to fund those. I think you guys have heard that. Parks, rules, and regs, I will follow up with Eric on what a potential timeline could be when they're vetted with you. I agree. I think we've had some pretty big decisions, and some of that got off our plate today. So I think you're going to have a window of time to get some things through. So the timing on that is really good. So those are a couple things. I'll walk away with a couple to-dos and certainly follow up on some of the conversation tonight. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And again, appreciate your presence and just being here. So.
I
Any other-
have one other comment, Mr. Chairman. I think we've all got calls recently on the hazard of the fire possibility of starting. Is there who promotes or who orchestrates a fire ban on the mountain? Or- You do?
Yeah,
Okay.
fire warden.
Okay, and
It's in
that's
place right now. There is a fire ban.
total fire ban where?
Not a total fire ban. You can still have a fire in a fire ring.
Right, right. And that's the question that people have been asking me, and
Well, right now, we haven't had any starts of fires from any campfires. They've all been lightning and/or,
stop the
Welding.
lightning.
Huh?
Stop the lightning.
well, if I could do that, I wouldn't be sitting here. But,
Then,
yeah, and I'll be honest with you too, it's kind of like a speed limit sign. It says 30 and everybody drives 60. When you go to the full fire ban, it doesn't stop stupid things from happening.
True.
It makes it very inconvenient particularly when you run it into October, for hunters and everybody that are trying to get out and do something. And BLM hasn't gone to the full fire restriction, so. However, the Game and Fish put one on this year, and I've never seen them do it. For some campgrounds they've got, I don't even know where they are.
They've actually done that.
Yeah, they put a full fire ban on. Yeah.
They did a lot earlier.
So, anyway, there is a fire ban.
good. Great. I knew that. I was just thinking about the rings. Thank you.
Okay, any other board comments? All right, we're looking for,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
that's what we were looking for.
I'll second that.
All right. Well, then we are adjourned. Let's vote on that.